For years, the world has watched the uneasy relationship between royalty and celebrity unfold in public view. But behind the polished headlines and curated appearances, a quieter battle may be shaping the future of the Sussex brand. Today's investigation explores the rumors, reactions, and shifting alliances that royal watchers believe could signal a dramatic turning point. Is this simply another media storm, or the moment when influence in both fashion and royalty begins to change course? In the language of the royal world, silence is often more revealing than scandal. And according to many observers, the latest whispers surrounding Meghan Markle and the luxury fashion establishment feel less like a sudden controversy and more like the slow closing of a very exclusive door. It did not begin with an official statement or a dramatic press conference. Instead, it began with absence. An absence that longtime royal commentators say speaks louder than any headline. For years, Meghan's public image has been closely tied to the symbolism of fashion. Every appearance carried a message, every brand choice a signal about independence, influence, and identity beyond palace walls. Yet recently, industry insiders have started to notice subtle changes. Invitations growing quieter, partnerships less visible, and the once constant stream of high-fashion moments appearing far more controlled. To the casual viewer, it may seem like a simple shift in style. But to those who follow the monarchy and media closely, it feels like a recalibration. The fashion world has always operated on an unwritten hierarchy, one that values stability and legacy just as much as creativity. Royal watchers often compare it to the monarchy itself, ancient traditions wrapped in modern presentation. When that balance tilts, the response is rarely loud. It is strategic, quiet, and carefully measured. Some analysts believe this is exactly what is happening now. Rather than dramatic confrontations, there are subtle signals suggesting that certain elite circles are redefining who represents their brand image moving forward. At the center of this conversation is the evolving perception of the Sussex narrative. After stepping away from royal duties, Meghan and Harry positioned themselves as independent figures navigating a new world of entertainment, business, and global influence. That transition brought enormous attention, but it also brought expectations. Fashion houses, much like royal institutions, tend to align themselves with stability and long-term legacy. When a public figure becomes surrounded by controversy or shifting public opinion, brands often choose distance over confrontation. Not because of hostility, but because discretion has always been their strongest currency. Observers note that this dynamic mirrors a larger theme playing out across the royal landscape. While Meghan's journey has emphasized reinvention, the monarchy's strategy has leaned toward endurance. The contrast between these two approaches, reinvention versus continuity, creates a narrative tension that keeps audiences watching. And in the world of high-retention storytelling, tension is everything. Yet what makes this moment particularly compelling is not the rumor itself, but the reaction surrounding it. Online discussions have grown intense, with some viewers interpreting the situation as a sign of cultural shift, while others see it as another example of media exaggeration. The truth, as always, likely exists somewhere between perception and reality. What remains undeniable is that the conversation has moved beyond fashion alone. It has become a symbol of how power, image, and public sentiment intersect in the modern era. As this investigation continues, one question begins to emerge. Is this simply a temporary distancing, or does it represent a deeper turning point in how the Sussex brand is perceived across global institutions? Because in the royal world, just like in couture, every gesture is intentional, every silence deliberate, and every shift in alignment carries a meaning that may only become clear with time. To understand why the conversation around Meghan Markle and elite fashion circles has intensified, it helps to look beyond headlines and into the psychology of prestige itself. Luxury brands do not simply sell clothing, they sell narrative. Every collaboration, every public appearance, and every carefully chosen ambassador represents a story about identity, power, and continuity. And in recent months, some royal commentators believe that narrative has begun to shift in subtle but meaningful ways. Unlike the loud world of celebrity gossip, the fashion industry communicates through silence and symbolism. A missing invitation, a different styling direction, or a sudden emphasis on heritage ambassadors can signal a change long before any official announcement appears. Observers have noted that legacy fashion houses tend to gravitate toward figures who project long-term stability. For decades, royal connections have offered exactly that, a sense of timelessness that aligns naturally with couture's emphasis on tradition. But Meghan's journey has always been defined by transformation. Since stepping away from royal duties, she has embraced a more independent identity, one rooted in Hollywood storytelling, activism, and entrepreneurship. To supporters, this evolution represents empowerment. To critics, it introduces unpredictability into a world that values consistency above all else. The tension between these two interpretations is where much of today's discussion lives. Some industry analysts suggest that the current narrative is less about exclusion and more about repositioning. Fashion houses constantly reassess who best represents their vision at any given moment. When public opinion shifts, brands often adjust quietly, avoiding direct conflict while subtly steering their image in a new direction. This is not unique to Meghan or the royal family. It is simply how high fashion has operated for decades. Yet because of the Sussexes' global visibility, even the smallest perceived change becomes magnified into a larger cultural conversation. Meanwhile, the monarchy itself continues to present a contrasting image, one rooted in continuity and restraint. Royal watchers often point out how figures like Catherine, Princess of Wales, embody a more traditional partnership between fashion and royal symbolism. Her appearances are frequently described as diplomatic gestures, reinforcing the monarchy's hooky, long-standing relationship with British heritage brands. Whether intentional or coincidental, this contrast creates a powerful narrative framework. Reinvention on one side, tradition on the other. For viewers, this dynamic fuels endless speculation. Some interpret it as a rivalry, while others see it as two parallel paths reflecting different philosophies of influence. What makes the story compelling is not necessarily conflict, but contrast. Meghan's style evolution speaks to modern independence, while the monarchy's fashion strategy leans toward historical continuity. Together, these opposing energies create a narrative tension that keeps audiences engaged. Yet beneath the surface lies a deeper question. How much of this perception is shaped by media framing rather than reality? The modern news cycle thrives on dramatic interpretations, especially when it involves figures who inspire strong opinions. Online discussions often amplify selective details, turning routine industry decisions into symbolic turning points. For longtime royal observers, this raises an important reminder that prestige is rarely defined by a single moment, but by the accumulation of countless quiet decisions over time. As the conversation continues, one theme becomes clear. The intersection of royalty and fashion is no longer just about clothing. It has become a stage where identity, reputation, and cultural expectations collide. And in that space, every move, whether intentional or simply interpreted that way, carries meaning far beyond the runway. Beyond the world of prestige lies the powerful engine that magnifies every move: the modern media landscape. In today's digital age, perception often outruns reality. And nowhere is that more evident than in the ongoing global fixation on Harry and Meghan. Each rumor, every symbolic gesture, and even the smallest shift in tone can quickly evolve into a larger narrative, growing more layered and emotionally charged with every retelling. The rise of faceless commentary channels has transformed how royal stories are consumed. Unlike traditional news outlets, these platforms blend documentary-style narration with dramatic storytelling, creating an atmosphere that feels investigative even when the subject matter is largely interpretive. Viewers are drawn into a carefully paced journey, one that combines historical parallels, emotional speculation, and a sense of unfolding drama. It is a format designed not just to inform, but to keep audiences watching until the final frame. For older viewers in the United States, the United Kingdom, and Australia, this style resonates deeply. Many grew up watching formal royal documentaries, where history and analysis were presented with a calm authority. Today's hybrid channels replicate that tone while introducing elements of tension that make the stories feel immediate. The result is a narrative experience that blurs the line between commentary and storytelling, encouraging viewers to form strong emotional connections to the unfolding events. Within this environment, Meghan often becomes a central figure in a broader cultural conversation. Some narratives portray her as a disruptor challenging centuries-old traditions, while others frame her as a misunderstood outsider navigating an institution resistant to change. These opposing perspectives create a constant cycle of friction, a dynamic that keeps audiences engaged because it reflects larger debates about modernity, tradition, and identity. Prince Harry's role in these narratives adds another layer of complexity. He is frequently depicted as a bridge between two worlds: the legacy of the monarchy and the independence of celebrity culture. This duality allows commentators to explore themes of loyalty, personal growth, and consequence without presenting definitive conclusions. Instead, viewers are invited to interpret events through their own lens, which increases engagement and encourages discussion in comment sections and online forums. At the same time, the fashion industry's perceived distance becomes part of a larger storyline about shifting alliances. Media analysts note that when luxury brands appear to favor quieter, more traditional royal figures, it reinforces the idea of a broader institutional alignment. Whether or not this alignment exists, in reality, the narrative itself becomes powerful enough to shape public perception. And in the digital age, perception often matters more than confirmation. Yet amid all the speculation, one truth remains consistent. The story of Harry and Meghan continues to evolve because it touches on universal themes: independence versus tradition, reinvention versus legacy, personal choice versus public expectation. These themes resonate across generations, giving the narrative a timeless quality that keeps viewers returning for updates. As this investigation moves forward, the conversation begins to shift from fashion and media toward a deeper question of legacy. Are these moments simply chapters in a longer story, or do they represent a turning point in how the Sussex brand is perceived across global culture? Because in the world of royalty, just as in the world of couture, narratives rarely end with a single event. They unfold slowly, shaped by perception, patience, and the quiet power of time itself. As the conversation around prestige and media momentum grows louder, a deeper question begins to emerge beneath the surface. What happens when personal branding collides with institutions that have existed for centuries? For Meghan, the journey from royal figure to independent global personality has always been defined by reinvention. Reinvention can be powerful, but it also creates moments of uncertainty. moments when the audience begins to reassess where influence truly lies. Observers often note that luxury fashion houses and legacy institutions operate on a similar rhythm. They rarely respond impulsively. Instead, they move slowly, signaling change through subtle gestures rather than direct statements. A shift in styling direction, a quieter presence at certain events, or an increased focus on heritage ambassadors can reshape perception without a single headline confirming it. In the world of couture, silence is not absence, it is strategy. For the supporters of Meghan, these moments are seen as part of a natural evolution. The transition from royal symbolism into a more autonomous identity. They argue that independence inevitably brings fluctuation, especially when navigating industries as demanding as fashion and media. But critics interpret the same signals differently. To them, the changing landscape suggests that elite circles are recalibrating their alliances, leaning toward figures who embody continuity rather than disruption. This contrast becomes even more striking when viewed alongside the broader royal narrative. While Meghan's public journey emphasizes individuality and self-expression, the monarchy continues to project stability through tradition. The image of quiet consistency, carefully curated appearances, restrained messaging, and heritage-focused partnerships creates a powerful visual counterpoint to the more dynamic Sussex storyline. Whether intentional or coincidental, this juxtaposition fuels ongoing discussion among royal watchers and fashion analysts alike. Yet beneath the symbolism lies a universal theme that resonates far beyond palace walls: the tension between personal freedom and collective expectation. Meghan's story has often been framed as a quest for independence, while the monarchy's approach reflects a belief in duty and continuity. When these two philosophies intersect, the result is not simply controversy, it becomes a narrative about modern identity itself. Viewers are drawn to this tension because it mirrors the challenges faced by many people navigating changing roles in a rapidly evolving world. At the same time, media amplification transforms subtle industry decisions into dramatic turning points. A single perceived shift can be interpreted as confirmation of a larger cultural change, even when the reality is far more nuanced. Commentators frequently remind audiences that fashion houses make decisions based on a complex web of factors: market trends, audience demographics, and long-term brand vision, rather than personal allegiances alone. Still, perception carries its own power, and once a narrative takes hold, it shapes how every future moment is interpreted. As speculation continues, the focus begins to move away from individual brands and toward a broader question of legacy. What does influence look like after leaving the structure of the monarchy? Can a figure maintain global cultural impact without the symbolic weight of royal tradition? These are the questions that linger beneath the headlines, quietly guiding the direction of public conversation. And perhaps that is why this moment feels less like a sudden rupture and more like a turning point, a crossroads where identity, perception, and legacy converge. Because in both fashion and royalty, true power is rarely announced loudly. It is revealed gradually, through the choices that reshape how the world sees a figure long after the spotlight shifts. As the narrative evolves, the story surrounding Harry and Meghan begins to feel less like a series of isolated events and more like a broader cultural reflection. Their journey has become a lens through which audiences explore questions about loyalty, independence, and the cost of stepping away from tradition. Every development, real or perceived, adds another layer to a narrative that continues to captivate viewers across generations. For Prince Harry, the transformation has been particularly complex. Once defined by his role within the royal institution, he now navigates a space that blends celebrity culture with royal legacy. To some observers, this represents courage, a willingness to redefine one's path beyond inherited expectations. To others, it introduces uncertainty, as the absence of royal structure leaves every decision open to intense scrutiny. This duality keeps the story emotionally charged, encouraging viewers to interpret events through their own values and experiences. Meanwhile, Meghan's position within the narrative often symbolizes the intersection between modern ambition and traditional hierarchy. Her presence challenges long-standing assumptions about what royal influence should look like in the 21st century. Supporters view her as a catalyst for change, while critics interpret her journey as evidence of the risks that come with rapid reinvention. The truth likely exists somewhere between these perspectives, shaped as much by public perception as by reality itself. Fashion's role in this evolving story highlights how cultural symbols can amplify deeper themes. Clothing, partnerships, and public appearances become more than aesthetic choices. They serve as visual shorthand for broader ideas about belonging and identity. When a fashion house appears to shift its alignment, whether intentionally or simply through changing trends, it reinforces the sense that the narrative is moving into a new phase. For viewers, these moments feel like milestones, marking the transition from one chapter of the Sussex story to another. At the same time, the media landscape continues to magnify every development, turning subtle shifts into global conversations. Faceless commentary channels and documentary-style analyses have created a new form of storytelling, one that blends speculation with reflection, encouraging audiences to engage emotionally while forming their own conclusions. This hybrid style resonates particularly strongly with older viewers who appreciate thoughtful narration but remain drawn to the tension of unfolding drama. What makes this moment particularly compelling is the absence of clear resolution. Instead of definitive answers, the narrative offers a series of possibilities. Will Meghan's evolving public image lead to a renewed alignment with influential institutions, or will it mark a deeper transformation into a fully independent cultural figure? Will Harry's journey redefine what it means to carry royal heritage outside the palace walls? These questions linger, shaping the way audiences interpret each new development. Ultimately, the story of Harry and Meghan is not just about individual choices or industry dynamics. It is about how modern society interprets change itself. Some viewers see reinvention as strength, while others see continuity as stability. The tension between these perspectives ensures that the narrative remains alive, constantly evolving, with each new interpretation. And as the spotlight shifts once again, the world watches closely, not only to see what happens next, but to understand what this unfolding journey reveals about legacy, influence, and the delicate balance between independence and tradition. As this chapter draws to a close, one thing becomes clear. The story of Harry and Meghan is no longer just about royalty or fashion. It has become a mirror reflecting how influence evolves in a world where tradition and reinvention constantly collide. Some viewers see strength in independence, others see value in continuity, and perhaps the real truth lies somewhere in between. What happens next will not be decided by headlines alone, but by perception, patience, and the choices still unfolding behind the scenes. Now, I want to hear your perspective. Do you believe this moment signals a lasting shift in how global institutions view the Sussex brand, or is it simply another phase in a much longer journey? Share your thoughts respectfully in the comments. Your voice shapes the direction of this conversation. If you enjoy calm, thoughtful royal analysis with a deeper narrative approach, make sure to like this video and subscribe for more investigations that go beyond surface-level gossip. And remember, in the world of royalty, the loudest stories are not always the most important. Sometimes the quietest changes tell us the most about what comes next.